Hello there, welcome to True Resource Bookkeeping. My name is Veronica, and on this channel we cover bookkeeping, mindset issues, and QuickBooks Online. My hope is to help make your bookkeeping journey a little bit easier and maybe even a little bit fun. So today I would like to share some tips to help you get your QuickBooks Online file ready to hand off to your tax preparer. Before we get started, I have a few disclaimers just to make sure that you get the most out of this and you know exactly if you are the best person to get the most out of this. So firstly, these tips are best for businesses that are sole proprietors, so you're kind of working on your own, or maybe you are single member LLC. If you are, you have like lots of partners, or you have like an S Corp or something like that, I personally suggest that you hire someone to help you get your QuickBooks Online file in the best shape. There's just a few things to keep in mind for those types of businesses. So these tips are best for sole proprietors and single member LLCs. These tips aren't like every possible thing that you could ever know. They're really just designed to help you get your books in a better shape so that once you hand them off to the tax preparer, they can just maybe ask one or two questions and then be good to go. And also, this is best for those people who are filing cash basis books for taxes. Hopefully you know what that means. If not, you should check with your tax preparer. But this, for if you had accrual basis, I feel like you would need some extra help and some support. So these tips are not for those people. And also, big disclaimer, this isn't tax advice. I'm not legally allowed to give tax advice, but I can help you get everything organized to hand off to your tax preparer. So let's get started. As you can see, I am on QuickBooks sample file test drive. It's good old Craig's Design and Landscaping Services. This will just help so that you can follow along and know where to look in your books. You can kind of use this maybe as a checklist as you're going through things, and have this video on one side and your QuickBooks on another side, and follow along. So the first thing I suggest that you do is I suggest you ask, have you entered everything that you need to enter for the year? And there's a few kind of checks that you can go through to make sure you've entered everything. So the first check is, if you're using the bank feed and you've have your bank connected, have you cleared everything that's in the bank feed for that period, for that year? So you would navigate to the left-hand menu and go to transactions. And also, disclaimer, sometimes QuickBooks rolls out different views and different versions, but the pages are the same. So just look for the page that says bank transactions or transactions and navigate there. So check this page. If you have, numbers here, it means that you have items that need to be entered. And if you scroll down, you can see the dates. And since I'm using Craig's Landscaping, it just automatically kind of has future dates for some reason. But it also has current dates. But look here and see, like, for the period that I'm looking. So if you're preparing for taxes for a certain year, just look in the feed and say, okay, are there any transactions from that period that I need to enter? And if there are, do your normal thing and enter them through. But you just want to make sure that you've captured everything that needs to be captured from the bank feed, because if you don't have everything in there, then your books are not accurate for the year. Next, I would suggest, if you're using the receipt function, to just check the receipt tab. So again, it should be in the receipts, a tab under the transactions. You can just click over and see, in this for review page, is there anything in this page? If there's something here, it's a sign that maybe you didn't capture everything, and make sure you get it into QuickBooks, because it's not technically in QuickBooks if it's here. Sometimes people will upload receipts that really were paid by like a personal card or something like that. And so you shouldn't add it from here, but it is a flag for you to add your personal transaction through a journal entry, which kind of leads me to the next part that you need to ask yourself. take a look around, wherever you keep your notes about what payments you're making throughout the year, and ask yourself, is there anything that you paid with a personal card or just somehow outside of QuickBooks that you paid for that's related to the business, but that doesn't live in QuickBooks yet and that you need to add? If so, just add that. You can do it by journal entry, which is if you go to Plus New and then go to journal entry, you would just add it that way, and then make sure you say that it's coming from, your owner's investment or, owner's equity or whatever, however you have your owner's draw kind of set up. Make sure that you get that in there, because if it's just outside somewhere, it's not QuickBooks, then your books aren't complete. And on the similar line, if you have income coming in that somehow didn't get into QuickBooks, maybe the account isn't linked. Like I know sometimes if people use like a Venmo and they don't have that linked, or if someone paid you just kind of like in cash or something, just anything that's not in QuickBooks that you need to put in QuickBooks, just this is the time to just make sure everything is in there that's not in there yet. Now, once you've made sure that everything's in there, I would next suggest reconciling. So reconciling, you can get on the same tab, which is Reconcile, or you can do it many ways. Sometimes I like to go to the gear icon and then find Reconcile in the tools. So you can either just reconcile if you already know, I need to catch up on reconciling. You can just pick your account and go through it. If you're not sure, how far back you need to go, if you click Reconcile and then go to this summary link, it'll just show you all of the accounts that you have, when's the last time, what last statement that you reconciled on. So then you can say, like in this example, you can say, oh, okay, for checking, so pretend I'm preparing for 2023 taxes. You can say, oh, for checking, I still need to do November and December. And same for savings, and so the summaries can be really helpful just so you can get a snapshot and then just go through and reconcile everything there. I also suggest if you have any loans, reconcile against whatever loan statement that you get from the bank or wherever you've gotten the loan from, because you want to make sure that you're tracking the interest, because sometimes, loans have interest and then they have the principal, the loan amount. So you just want to make sure you're tracking that right. And you can reconcile it very similarly to your statements, your checking and your, credit card, whatever. So I recommend reconciling the loan as well and making sure that it matches what you have on the statement. So after you've reconciled everything, then I suggest that you check if there's anything that's unreconciled. So unreconciled transactions are a sign that something is up, right? So it could mean that you might have duplicates, So basically, if you have something that hasn't been reconciled and it's been a long time, it means that it never showed up in the bank or on the credit card. So you have to kind of look and see, is it a duplicate? Did I put this in twice? Is it that, maybe you wrote a check to someone, if you still write checks, you wrote a check to someone and they haven't cashed it yet. So you need to follow up with them, which isn't really a tax thing, but just more like good to do every so often. So there's several ways to do that. One way it's easy is, let's say, you can go to whatever register. So there I just click the credit card register. If you're not sure, you can also find that from the chart of accounts. You can just choose whatever, like say checking, and you can just click view register. And I would then go to this funnel, and this funnel is like a way to sort if you haven't used it before. And I would just search for, in the reconcile status column or field, check not reconciled, and then click apply. And it's going to just show you everything that hasn't been reconciled for the account that you're looking at the moment. And you can sort it by date. It's probably best to sort it so that the earlier dates are first, just so you can see. And then just go through, so like pretending for the 2023 example, say we just reconciled all the way through December, but that we have these things from November, December. You would go through and you kind of just have to do a little bit of investigative work and say, okay, this payment, I know I got the money and I know I saw it on my account, so maybe it's duplicate. And then you can just kind of look, maybe you need to search for this amount to see, like, are there two of these, and adjust accordingly. Because if you don't do this, your reports are going to be wrong, because it's going to have either too much stuff in there or too little. So that is what I recommend to do next, is just make sure your unreconciled it makes sense, and if it doesn't, that you get rid of what's not supposed to be there, and you add whatever's supposed to be there. If you're tracking mileage, this doesn't go into your books, but there is a space in QuickBooks for tracking mileage. So if you're tracking mileage, I recommend just going to that area, which if you go to expenses and mileage, if it's not there, you can also just kind of search in the top with the search bar, or sometimes there's a search bar now in the middle, and just look for mileage, and it'll take you to that section, which we're already at. But yeah, just look and see, have you put in all your mileage? Really, like, again, this doesn't connect to your reports in QuickBooks, but it is something that could be helpful to give to your tax preparer, by just going and downloading the trips and then giving that information to them, or prepare, just helping you compile, when they're asking you, like, how much mileage did you have this there. So make sure that you add all your trips that you took for the year. And then finally, you've added everything, you've reconciled, you've removed anything that's not reconciled. Take a look at your reports. That's the next thing I would do. So go to your reports menu. I suggest that you look at the very least at the balance sheet, profit and loss, and also check out the aging if you're using kind of accounts receivable, as if you're using invoicing, and accounts payable if you're using the bill function. We'll get to these in, I'll go step by step by each of them just to say what you should be looking for. But I'll use the balance sheet as an example just to get us started. So the balance sheet, you would go to whatever period. So let's pretend that I'm going to do last year, and I pull up the whole year and just say, and make sure it says cash basis, and run it. They are rolling out different reports in QuickBooks, so you might not see this exact view, but it's the same concept where you just want to make sure you have the right period and the right accounting method. And when you search, I always recommend when you're looking at reports, you just kind of do a quick scroll. Just scroll from the top to the bottom, and you just look and see, does anything jump out to you? Does anything look too big, too small? Is something missing? Does something not make sense? And that's a flag for you that you need to kind of put on your, detective hat and just go and see, like, what's going on. So if you scroll through and you see, like, okay, cash, does this make sense? Does this seem like the balance that I had around that time? If it was really small, like if it was a negative number, and you like, that doesn't make sense, I know I had money in my bank account I reconciled, then that's a flag for you to kind of look deeper. Or if it's really, really ridiculously large, like that's another example to look deeper. And just look through each one, undeposited funds, like what is that? What is that number? What does that make? Anything you look through, or any number that you see in here, you can click it and it'll just show you the details. It'll show you, okay, and this is an example of QuickBooks using a different type of report. So they're changing the reports. So see how the top section looks a little bit different. So your front balance sheet might have this kind of top section, but again, you just kind of pick your own dates, or you can use, look for last year in that way. But this will show you all of the activity that makes up the 4,000 something amount that was on the balance sheet. So you can just look through and see, do these things make sense? Do I understand what happened here? If anything doesn't, you can also always click on one of the lines, and it'll open up the transaction for you to look at and get more information. But no, we don't want to save it. But yeah, just look through. Does it make sense? Okay. Does it look through it? Does it make sense? Are there things that are negative that shouldn't be? So like this is negative $28 in a loan payable or a payable. So payable means that you owe something. So it's very unlikely that you're going to have a negative loan, meaning like you paid too much. So that's a flag to be like, what happened there? Let me click it and see. Do I understand what this is? Does it make sense? It might make sense, but you always just go back and see whether it makes sense or not. But yes, that's what I recommend. Just go through, do a slow scroll. Does that make sense or not? And then the next report I recommend you look at is the profit and loss. Oops. And again, you can do last year and then make sure you have the cash basis, because this is the basis of the report that you're going to be giving to the tax professional, to tax preparer, whether it's a CPA, a EA, whatever kind of person. This is the basis of the report that ties to the Schedule C. You might have different categories than the Schedule C has, but this is the report that is used typically to get to the Schedule C. So I would recommend doing, again, that slow scroll that we did on the balance sheet. Do things make sense? Do the categories look right? Do they make sense? Do the amounts make sense? Do they look weird? And then I also would recommend going to this display columns by and clicking months and then running the report again. And if your screen is, if your screen is wide enough, you might be able to see everything. If not, you can just go and export it to Excel, or it might look different on a different report, and then you can see it maybe a little bit better. But just go through your report. Again, because this is a test version, they don't have everything for the whole year, but yours probably will, whatever year you're looking at, and just go through and say, does this make sense? Like, are there things that you would expect to see every month that didn't happen? Just kind of, does anything jump out to you that just looks weird? Like, oh, why was, a certain thing, let's pretend there's numbers here, but like maybe if, the lawyer was $300, every month, and then one month it's like $5,000. Does that make sense? Do you expect that? Just go through and see if there's anything here. And also, I would also flag, because I see this happen a bunch. If you're going through this and you see any line on the profit and loss that is for payments that you made to yourself, that's a flag for you, because why this is a best video for sole proprietors and single member LLCs. If you are in that kind of classification, your payments to yourself should not be showing up on the profit and loss. So if you see a payment to yourself on the profit and loss, open it up and change the category so that it goes to like an owner's pay category, which will then show up on the balance sheet instead. So I know that was a lot, but I just wanted to show you all the things that you can do to get your books ready to hand off to your tax preparer. The intention is that when you hand them off to your tax preparer, they might have like one or two questions and maybe some adjustments that they need to do to help, get you ready for tax time. But it's going to be in such a good shape that they just have those one or two questions. If you follow these instructions and you make sure everything's in there, you reconcile, you remove anything that, is in there duplicated or just wrong, that by the time you hand it over, it's just a quick, it's quicker than you've ever had. They can just do your taxes and you can move on to the next year. That is my hope for you. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. If you need additional support, there's information in the description that'll help you get some additional support. If we're doing this and you're like, yeah, you know what? I got this part, but maybe I could, get some more help with that part. Let me know. I'm happy to help. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will see you again next time.